It was a hot, sweltering afternoon in the bustling heart of Lagos. The air reeked of exhaust fumes, grilled plantains, and struggle. Hawkers screamed over one another trying to sell sachet water, bananas, recharge cards, anything that could earn them a few naira. And amidst it all, standing like a ghost fading into the chaos, was a woman whose soul had long been worn thin. Her name was Ifeoma. With a baby strapped to her back and a 5-year-old girl clinging to her skirt, Ifeoma stared longingly at the luxury restaurant through the large tinted glass. Inside, air conditioners hummed gently. Men and women in silk suits and golden watches sipped on wine that cost more than her monthly rent. Plates of untouched food were being cleared: chicken, rice, soups, food enough to feed a dozen hungry bellies like hers. Her throat was parched. She hadn't eaten since the previous evening, and all she had managed to give her children was water. The baby whimpered softly, while her daughter, Adora, pressed her tiny stomach and asked, "Mummy, will the food people throw away come here today too?" Ifeoma looked down, swallowing the pain that tightened her chest. "Yes, my baby. God will provide." But she knew she was lying. The nearby buka that used to give her old leftovers had closed down last week. And every rich man she had approached had treated her like a pest. Just then, a shiny black Lexus slowly rolled into the restaurant's parking lot. Out came a tall man in a navy blue kaftan, his wrist flashing a diamond-studded watch. His steps were slow, deliberate, almost indifferent to the world. Everyone turned. The waiters straightened their backs. The manager rushed out. Even the gateman gave a salute. This was Chief Remi Owolabi, a billionaire industrialist and the owner of half the real estate along Victoria Island. Ifeoma had seen him once before on TV, donating 50 million Nigerian nairas to some hospital and laughing with politicians. But now he was barely a few steps away. She hesitated. Should she dare? But then the baby cried louder, and her daughter's knees buckled from hunger. With trembling legs and a heartbeat that pounded like a drum in her ears, Ifeoma stepped forward. "Yes, sir, please," she called out softly at first. He didn't hear. "Please, sir," she said louder this time, drawing attention. Chief Remi turned slowly, his brows raised as if shocked someone had spoken to him directly. His guards moved closer, but he raised a hand to stop them. "Can I help you?" Ifeoma went to her knees. "I'm not begging for money. Please, just leftover food. Anything at all, even bones. My children haven't eaten in 2 days." The silence that followed was louder than the Lagos traffic. People stared. Waiters exchanged glances. One woman scoffed and muttered, "She should go and work instead of embarrassing herself." But Chief Remi didn't say a word. He stared at her for a long moment, at her torn slippers, sunburnt skin, and the hunger etched into every bone in her face. His eyes settled on Adora, whose lips had cracked from dehydration. Then, without a word, he turned and walked into the restaurant. Ifeoma bowed her head, crushed. The world swallowed her shame as the laughter and murmurs around her rose. She stood up slowly, ready to leave. But just then, the restaurant door opened again. A young waiter rushed out, holding a takeaway bag packed full: rice, chicken, mwamwa, water, juice, even some fruits. "Madam, Oga say make you take am." Ifeoma blinked. "Sorry, who?" "The man way just enter. He say make you take this food and wait here. He want talk to you after." Tears welled in her eyes. Her hands trembled as she took the warm bag. Adora's face lit up like sunrise. "Mummy, God answered us." She hugged her daughter tightly and whispered, "Yes, he did." About 30 minutes later, Chief Remi stepped out. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he watched Ifeoma feed her children gently, breaking the meat into small bits, fanning the baby's face, sipping water last. Then he finally spoke. "What's your name?" "Ifeoma, sir." "Where's your husband?" "He died 2 years ago in a factory explosion." "I was pregnant with this one." She gestured to the baby. "You work?" "I used to clean houses, but the madam I worked for moved abroad. Since then, I've been trying to survive." He was quiet again. She felt the familiar dread that he would walk away now, satisfied that he had done enough. But then he did something strange. "Come with me." "Sir?" "I said come with me." You and your children. Confused, scared, and hopeful all at once, she followed him. He opened the door of his car and told her to sit. The driver looked confused but obeyed. As the Lexus glided through the city, Ifeoma looked out, heart pounding, wondering what on earth was happening. They finally stopped at a gated compound. It wasn't a mansion, but a neatly kept bungalow with flowers in the yard. A short woman came out to greet them. "Madam Esther, please help this woman. Clean her up. Get her and the children some clothes. I'll send money for supplies." Esther nodded, smiling warmly at Ifeoma. "But supply?" Ifeoma asked, unable to hold back her tears. Remy stared at her, his voice suddenly quiet. "Because once, a long time ago, someone helped my own mother too." And then he left. Over the next few weeks, Ifeoma couldn't believe what was happening. Remy didn't just drop food or money. He arranged for her to receive training at a vocational center. He paid school fees for Ifeoma and got medical care for the baby. Esther helped her settle in. Slowly, Ifeoma began to stand on her own 2 feet again. But the story didn't end there. Because in Lagos, miracles often come with shadows. And the truth about Remy's past, the real reason he helped Ifeoma, was darker than she could ever imagine. Ifeoma never imagined comfort could feel so unfamiliar. Every morning, she woke up in a clean room with a fan that hummed softly overhead. The children were healthy, fed, and laughing again. Ifeoma even started practicing her alphabets loudly, the way children in school did. And though Ifeoma still struggled to believe her new reality, the days moved gently forward. But even peace can feel like a borrowed dress, beautiful, but not quite your size. She still didn't understand why Chief Remy had helped her. People as rich as him didn't just stop and change lives. They donated at award ceremonies or on social media, but this was personal. And then, one rainy Thursday afternoon, she got a call. Esther handed her the phone. "Oga wants to see you." Ifeoma's palms grew cold. She hadn't seen him in weeks. All help had come through Esther or bank transfers. She dressed quickly, wrapped the baby on her back, and held Adaora's hand as the same Lexus pulled up again to take her. This time, they didn't go to the small bungalow. They drove into the heart of Ikoyi, where buildings stood like kings above the city. The car stopped in front of a tall, glass mansion. She was escorted inside. Chief Remy was waiting in a dimly lit study, staring at an old black and white photograph on his desk. He looked older today. Tired. "I'm glad you came," he said without looking up. "Thank you, sir, for everything." He waved his hand. "Sit down." She did, cautiously. Then he handed her the photograph. "Do you recognize this woman?" Ifeoma stared. It was a young woman with deep-set eyes and a tired smile, maybe in her late 20s. She had the same skin tone, same cheekbones. But no, it couldn't be. "No, sir." "Who is she?" "My mother," he said. "She raised me in Ajigunal. Single mother. Sold Accra on the roadside." One day, a man in a Mercedes stopped. She thought he was just buying food. But he gave her money, helped her start a real business. And that changed everything. "She died before I became rich, but I never forgot." He paused, voice thickening. "That man saved us. And I told myself one day I would repay the world in the same way. Quietly. Directly. Genuinely." Ifeoma's eyes filled with tears. "You helped me, because someone helped your mother?" "Yes," he said, his voice soft. "But also because I recognized that same look in your daughter's eyes, the same hunger, the same fear I used to carry." He turned to face her directly. "But there's something else, Ifeoma." Her chest tightened. "I'm setting up a foundation in my mother's name. I want it to support struggling women like her, and like you." Her lips parted, unsure what to say. "I want you to help run it." She gasped. "Me? You'll learn. I'll pay for your education. You'll grow into it. You've lived this life, you know it better than anyone." Ifeoma's mouth trembled. "But you're not just anything. You're a survivor. And one day, you'll help others survive too." Silence fell between them, deep and full of meaning. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sun peeked shyly through the clouds. But unknown to Ifeoma, someone else was watching. From across the hallway, a tall, well-dressed woman clutched her phone tightly. Her eyes narrowed. She had heard everything, and her lips curled in anger. This was Remy's cousin, Pamela, the one who believed she would inherit the family trust. And she wasn't going to let some poor widow from the street take it all away without a fight. The next few weeks were like a dream for Ifeoma. Chief Remy kept his word. She was enrolled in online business management classes, received a laptop, and had Esther tutor her in the evenings. Her children were thriving. Adaora had started attending one of the best primary schools in the area, and the baby no longer cried from hunger. More than the food and comfort, Ifeoma had begun to feel something rare: dignity. She wasn't begging anymore. She was becoming someone. But while her life bloomed quietly, something darker had begun brewing behind closed doors. Pamela paced back and forth in her Lekki apartment, her eyes burning with rage. How dare he, she hissed. She had worked tirelessly to be in Remy's good graces, attended every board meeting, managed half the family's legal affairs. And yet, he had never offered her the chance to run the Owolabi Foundation. Instead, he was handing it to a woman who used to beg for leftover food? No, I won't let that happen. That night, she dug into Ifeoma's past. She found the old neighborhood, the landlord who threw Ifeoma out, an old neighbor who remembered her struggles, a bitter aunt who once told people Ifeoma had slept her way through life. It didn't matter if it was true. Pamela twisted it into a convincing narrative. And then she made the call. Remy was in a meeting when his phone buzzed. Pamela's message flashed on the screen. You really think she's who she says she is? Check your email. Do it now. His stomach turned. Minutes later, he opened the files. Photos. Screenshots. A typed summary. Words like questionable morals, possible child neglect, mental instability, and no known family background screamed from the screen. He dropped the phone. Was he being used? Had he made a mistake? He canceled his meetings for the day. That evening, Ifeoma was summoned to Remy's office. She came dressed in her best outfit, a modest gown Esther had bought for her. She'd even styled her hair. She walked in with quiet pride, unaware of the storm waiting on the other side. Remy didn't look at her when she entered. He was silent for a while, then finally said, I received some information about you today. Ifeoma froze. He looked up. Is it true you were accused of abandoning your daughter once, when she was 2? She blinked, stunned. No, sir, never. Who said that? Did you ever associate with anyone involved in drugs? God forbid. Never. And this accusation from your aunt, about sleeping with your landlord in exchange for rent? Her voice cracked. Sir, my aunt hated my mother. When I refused to marry the man she picked for me, she turned on me. All of that is lies. Remy sat back, eyes heavy with disappointment and doubt. You can go now. I need time. Ifeoma's voice dropped to a whisper. Sir, have I done something wrong? He didn't answer. She walked out slowly, her chest collapsing inward. Back in her small house, she fed the children in silence, then sat alone outside, eyes fixed on the moon. Why did the world never let people like her rest? Was it wrong to dream? But the next morning, something unexpected happened. Pamela held a press conference. She had planned to leak Ifeoma's past to the media, to frame it as a scandal that would damage the foundation. But something went wrong. A junior staff member, who had grown fond of Ifeoma, overheard Pamela's conversation and sent voice recordings to Remy. Remy listened in silence. The laughter, the insults, the plot to destroy a woman who had done nothing but try to survive. He clenched his fists. This wasn't about protecting the foundation. This was about pride, power, and greed. The next day, Pamela was removed from the board, and Remy drove straight to Ifeoma's house. She was sweeping the front yard when he stepped out of his car. I'm sorry, he said softly. She looked up, unsure what she was hearing. I doubted you. I should have trusted my own eyes, not other people's shadows. Tears streamed down her face. You're still the one I want to run my mother's foundation. If you'll still accept it. She nodded slowly. I will. But this time, her voice wasn't weak. It held power. Months passed. The Owolabi Foundation officially launched with a vision that was simple but powerful: to find, uplift, and empower struggling women across Nigeria. At the heart of its operations sat Ifeoma, no longer a shadow of poverty, but a woman of strength, poise, and purpose. She wore her identity like a badge of honor, never hiding her past. In interviews, she would say, "Yes, I once begged for food, but I never begged for pity. What I wanted was a chance, and now, I'm here to give others theirs." Under her leadership, the foundation grew fast. She created a microloan scheme for single mothers, set up skill acquisition centers across low-income communities, brought in volunteers, some of whom were women she had once shared the street with. Every month, she returned to the same restaurant where it all began, not to ask, but to give. Free food packs were distributed to struggling women, along with flyers about how to register for the foundation's programs. One afternoon, as she handed a food pack to a frail old woman, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Mommy, can I be the one to share the next one?" Aora, now with brighter cheeks and confident words, stood with a gentle smile. Ifeoma knelt beside her daughter and handed her the next pack. "Yes, my baby. Share it with kindness." From behind, someone clicked a photo, a mother and daughter giving what they once lacked. That photo would later appear on the cover of a national magazine with the headline, "From Hunger to Hope, the Woman Who Turned Leftovers into Legacy." But as life often goes, not every day remained bright. One evening, Ifeoma received news that shook her world again. Chief Remy had collapsed in his home. She rushed to the hospital. He was conscious but weakened. His speech was slurred, but his eyes still held clarity. When he saw her, he smiled faintly. "You built something beautiful," he whispered. She took his hand. "Because you believed in me." "No, because you believed in yourself even when the world didn't." He coughed, breathing heavier. "Promise me you'll never stop. Don't let them shame you back into silence. The foundation, it's yours now. I already signed the documents." She shook her head, eyes full of tears. "You're going to live. You'll still see all the lives will change." He smiled. "Maybe, but even if I don't, I know it's in the right hands." Chief Remy eventually recovered, though he stepped away from public life. He now spent his days quietly mentoring from the sidelines, while Ifeoma became the face of the mission they both started. Pamela moved abroad, her influence faded. The same board members who once whispered doubts now applauded Ifeoma's leadership. And many of the rich women who had once judged her began inviting her to speak at conferences, praising her transformation. But Ifeoma never let it get to her head. She always remembered where she came from, and more importantly, who she came from. A generation of women silenced by poverty, but born with power. One Saturday, Ifeoma sat alone at the edge of a community center the foundation had just opened in Makoko. The sun was setting, casting gold over the water and rooftops. The air was filled with the sound of children laughing and mothers chatting in gratitude. She watched Adaora playing with other kids, the baby now old enough to run around. Beside her sat a worn-out plastic container, the same one she used to beg with. She kept it as a reminder, not of shame but of grace, of what happens when the powerful choose mercy instead of mockery. A teenage girl in tattered slippers approached her hesitantly, holding a small child. "Ma, please. I heard you help people. I don't want money. I just want work. I can wash, clean, do anything." Ifeoma stood up slowly, her heart tugged. She looked the girl in the eye and said the same words that changed her life years ago. "Come with me." And just like that, another story began. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness, a leftover, a glance of mercy, a door opened without judgment, can rewrite generations. Because poverty doesn't always need pity. It needs opportunity, and dignity, and someone who dares to remember.